Well, good morning, and welcome to the Morning Report. My name is Willie Lawson. I trust that you are well this glorious day. It is Wednesday, December 21st, second. What day? What day is it? 21st. You know, all these days sort of sometimes they do a Christmas mashup where we're just waiting for Sunday and Christmas Day and Christmas Eve for some of you. We are in the middle of Hanukkah, so happy Hanukkah to our Jewish friends and those who celebrate Hanukkah. Thank you so much for spending some time with us today. We've got some stories again that are eye-opening that you're not going to see anywhere else, and that's the beauty. Let me take these off. That's the beauty of what we're doing here is that you're not going to see them anywhere else. You're just not going to. Um, you're going to see, I mean, if you are in the weeds like we are, you might find them in some conservative compilations or conservative publications, but you're not going to see these stories on mainstream media. You're not going to see them in the legacy media. You're not going to see these stories on USA Today or New York Times or whatever, or the Tampa Bay Times. Pravda is what we call it here. You're not going to. So it's super important that we keep doing it. Paul and I keep doing what we're doing, and that you keep doing what you're doing. That you keep looking for other places for information. That is vital to the survival of the Republic. And I know that sounds crazy and over the top and hyperbolic and all that stuff. But unfortunately, right now, the condition that the Republic is in is very, very true. It's very, very important. Again, I hope that you are well this morning and your family as well, that you have all you need and more, and that God is blessing you and will continue to bless you. So that is my Christmas wish for you, that you are in health, because we know without our health, there ain't much going on. I got some friends right now that Christmas time is rough. They lost a loved one at around Christmas time a few years ago, and life can be a little, you know. So I hope that you are well. All right, let's go ahead and get started with the stories. We know about our friend Rand Paul. You know what? I'm a fan of Rand Paul. I'm not really so much of a fan of his dad. Um, I think his dad was not a doddering old man, and it wasn't that he didn't say the right things or didn't believe the right things. I just think that he was in a position where he wasn't as powerful. He wasn't as good a speaker as his son. I don't think he was as bold as his kid. Uh, that's just me personally. Now, some of y'all just love Ron Paul, and that's fine. And you've been running behind Ron Paul for years and years and years, and that's cool. And that's super cool. So don't get your liver in a quiver, or you're busy and a tizzy at this point. Um, but it's that time of year again. This is an article from our friends at Red State. We're not talking about the ones of the Christmas season. We're talking about the U.S. Congress coming together to shove a giant omnibus bill down the throats of hurting Americans. This is the craziest time to do something like this. This is how we know. If you were wondering, this is exactly how we know that our federal government, the people who are in office right now in the U.S. Congress, in the House of Representatives, and the Senate, are so disconnected from you and really don't believe that you have any say on what they do. This article again is from Red State. Yeah, inflation is still crazy high. A dozen eggs cost $6. But what we really need is to spend millions of dollars in taxpayer money on LGBTQ pride centers, while shoving even more money into the black hole that is the Department of Defense. You'd hope that we'd get at least extra spending for border security in such a monstrosity of a bill, but nope. There's a provision that expressly disallows it. This tells the entire story. Because, of course, there is. But don't expect Republican leadership to stand in the way of the gravy train. Heck, they're all for it. Mitch McConnell even praised the omnibus bill as a major win for the right, suggesting the GOP got all its priorities. A sane person would ask what trade-off was what and whether it was worth it. Unfortunately, there aren't many of these around. Sane people, that is. Well, of course, well, except for like Senator Rand Paul. Rand took to the podium today with all 4,000 plus pages of the omnibus bill, and said what his spineless Republican colleagues won't. Here's what he said. He said, "I brought with me the Omni, 4,155 pages. When was it produced? In the dead of night. 1:30 in the morning it was released. Now, people argue it's conservatives' fault that you don't have the Christmas spirit. Somehow you're holding up government. Well, whose job is it to produce this? The people in charge of the spending, the people in charge of both parties. When did they know that this would be necessary? Well, it's in the law, September 30th. You've got 9 months, almost 10 months to produce a plan, to have a spending plan. They weren't ready on September 30th, so they voted themselves 90 more days. They weren't ready last week either, so they voted themselves another week. And now we have it at 1:30 in the morning. This morning. This is what I think a majority of of the voting public doesn't get. I think that we have been lulled into this narrative that is spy versus spy, and it's us against them. It's those rascally Republicans. It's those dastardly Democrats. And in a way, it's all of them. And we don't need term limits. We need engaged voters. We need an engaged electorate that can tear themselves away from legacy media and the legacy narrative and understand what is actually happening. Paul continues from there, tearing down the bipartisan argument that this bill must be passed immediately as a quasi-emergency measure. Republicans and Democrats knew for over 9 months that this plan needed to be put together. Instead of doing it responsibly, which would have been to produce several smaller spending bills grouped by similar appropriations, it dropped a 4,000 plus page bill in the middle of the damn night, that with a demand that it be passed within days. No debate, no amendments, just eat the turd sandwich. All the while, people like McConnell and Schumer insist that it would be dangerous not to pass their garbage omnibus bill. As Paul notes, though, what's more dangerous, adding another $1 trillion to the national debt, or the military doing without an extra few million in spending? The United States is far more susceptible to financial collapse at this point than foreign invasion, except for what's happening at the southwestern border, especially given our biggest enemies live across thousands of miles of oceans. It's not to say that military spending is bad. It's to say that the constantly leaning on military spending as a win, excusing all manner of insane domestic spending that was traded for it, got old a long time ago. It's the same song and dance every year from Republican leadership. If they don't even attempt to care about what's being done to the country's economic outlook, whether they are talking about the national debt or middle class crushing inflation caused by the continuing blowing out of the budget. Rand Paul stands among a small group that has remained consistent on that point. No one else is clean in the Republican Party. It's a shame that he doesn't have a real shot at the White House because he might be the best option of all. Republican voters prefer the sizzle to actually take tasting the steak, though, because we have been taught that, right? Right? We've been taught that. We've been taught that. You know, we've been taught that. We've been taught that compromise is what it's about. This is actually the issue as far as I'm concerned. We've been taught that what's supposed to happen is compromise. No, and I know this is a hard lesson for a lot of people. We get taught that compromise is everything. When people talk about, well, marriage is, just a series of compromises. It is not. It is not. Marriage is deciding that the relationship is the most important thing and doing whatever you have to do to make sure the relationship survives. It's not compromise. My favorite line, I've already told you what it is. You know what it is. That whatever you compromise to keep, you will someday lose. And we see this happening at the federal level more and more every cycle. Republicans compromise. They continue to compromise. They compromise what their stated values are. They compromise what they go into their districts and tell their constituency. And they get on the floor of the House or the floor of the Senate and they compromise. And they come back and say, yeah, I know what I said, but look what I got you. The um, the analogy of a turd sandwich is pretty good. It's right on target. But I got you some military spending. I didn't ask for military spending. Okay? Not that military spending isn't important, like Senator Paul says, it's not like it isn't important, but you can't tank the nation's economy and then compromise everywhere else for a few $1,000,000 in military spending. That's not a win. It's not a win for American families. It's not a win for American families who are fighting $6 for a dozen eggs. $6? Military spending doesn't help them. Now, I know that we're enjoying right now some lower, fuel prices, but because of the way it was done, we know, because we warned you, that fuel prices are headed back up. They are. They have to, because it's the strategic oil reserves, petroleum reserves are at an all-time low. The cost for manufacturers to buy the goods they need to manufacture the products that we want, their prices have not subsided. Folks, the only people that can cause inflation is government. The only entity that can cause inflation is government. And this omnibus bill that both Mitch McConnell and Chuck Schumer are hand in hand tongue kissing about is another $1 trillion, $1.7 trillion. In money that I don't have. See, that's the amazing thing for me, and it should be for you. It's a huge amount of money, and that the government doesn't have. The government will have to just print some up, and the concept is very, very simple. People think that this economic concept is very complicated. It isn't. The concept is very, very simple. The more money that is printed, the less your money will buy, the less valuable it is. It's like anything else. The more of it that there is, the less value that it has. You wonder why eggs are $6. It isn't that eggs are $6. It's that your money doesn't buy as much as it used to. It isn't that the average price of a home in Florida is $600,000 for the very same house that 10 years ago was $60,000. It's your dollar will buy less. Well, why? U.S. monetary policy. There's so much money out there. There's so much money out there that it has less value. Okay, let me give you an example before I go on to the next thing. Um, those little toys that McDonald's used to give away, Beanie Babies. And while that was going on, people were trading them, and they were considered to be the next collectible. Do you know why they're not the next collectible? I'll tell you why. Because there's millions of them out there. Millions. That's why they're not worth anything. Why isn't your Larry Grantham, or this is going to take some of y'all back, and leave most of y'all behind? Why is your Larry Grantham football card not worth anything? Larry Grantham was a linebacker for the New York Jets in the '60s. Why isn't it worth anything? Because Larry Grantham is not a Hall of Fame is not a Hall of Fame player, and there are millions of those cards out there. That's why your Larry Grantham football card that you have from the '60s, just because it's old, doesn't have any value. Look it up. Doesn't have any value. That's why. The dollars in your wallet, the very same thing. Why won't your dollars buy what they used to buy? Because there's too many of of the dollars out there. They don't have any value. It's not hard. And with $1.7 trillion in this omnibus bill, your dollars are going to buy even less. Inflation is going to go up even higher. It's a damn shame. It's a damn shame that they are pulling the old okey doke on most of them, or trying to pull the old okey doke on most of us. That's a damn shame. All right, this story is weird. Weird, I think. The Royal Astronomical Society has canceled NASA's James Webb Space Telescope. When I saw this headline, I went, huh? Over claims that the namesake, James Webb, discriminated against gay employees. James Webb is dead, by the way. Can y'all find out when James Webb died? Over claims that James Webb discriminated against gay employees, and the Royal Astronomical Society, the RAS, has decided to tell its 4,000 members to stop using the telescope, or the telescope's name in the studies. Because that is how they're going to stay woke or whatever. The James Webb Space Telescope is the most powerful observatory ever built. It was named in honor of a man who ran the space agency, NASA, in the '60s. The Royal Astronomical Society has ordered members to stop using its full title. Now, people will still use it. It follows claims that Webb was a homophobe, who oversaw the purge of gay employees. I'll just say the story. This is quote from the Daily Mail. An interstellar row has broken out between the RAS and NASA over claims that a former boss of NASA purged gay staff. The James Webb Telescope, the most powerful observatory ever built, was named in honor of the man who ran the space agency in the 1960s. But the 202-year-old society has ordered its 4,000 members to refrain from using the telescope's full title, claiming that Mr. Webb was a homophobe who oversaw the purge of gay employees. In a statement released in October, the RAS wrote, James Webb was the administrator of NASA during the 60s. His stewardship led to the success of projects such as the Apollo moon landings. His historical reputation is, however, compromised by evidence he took part in the purges of gay men from the federal workforce in the 40s and the 50s. In the so-called Lavender Scare, dismissing employees for sexual orientation is entirely unacceptable, except that it was in 1940. This is this ridiculously stupid, moronic mentality that we should take today's sensibilities or non-sensibilities and cover the past with them, and then judge the past by them. We better pray that future generations don't do that to us, because they're going to think that the entire world lost their damn mind. Here's what they say: until that investigation takes place and the results are made public, the RS now expects authors submitting scientific papers to its journals to use the JWST acronym rather than the full name. See, future generations are going to look at us, look at these people and go, these people are freaking morons. So you can't say James Webb Telescope, but you can say JWST. The society also argued that the naming process for large scientific projects should be more transparent, and an investigation into Mr. Webb should have taken place before the telescope was named after him. Last month, NASA sought to dispel the claims as its chief historian, Brian Odom, issued an 89-page report concluding accusations against Mr. Webb were misplaced. The space agency acknowledged that the federal government at the time shamefully promoted discrimination against gay employees in the 1940s, but concluded no available evidence directly links Webb to any actions or follow-up related to the firing of individuals for their sexual orientation. Now the RAS is saying now it's considering whether to change its position in light of the NASA investigation. There's not really an investigation. They said, what NASA basically told RAS, what the hell are you talking about? What the hell are you talking about? But again, it's the idea. It's this ridiculously stupid, moronic, outrageously moronic idea that we could take today's sensibilities and drape them over 40, 50, 80, 100 years ago, and then feel confident about it. I think future civilizations, future societies will look at us and go, those people were dumb as hell. They were just dumb. Something happened. You know what? I don't believe in that they're spraying dumb down on us, but they may be. It's the only thing now that makes sense. I think they're contrails. I don't think that that planes are spraying stuff on the populace. But you know what? The more I see these stories, the more I hear people talk, it's the only damn thing that makes sense. It's the only thing that makes sense. Yeah, James, thank you. James Webb died in 1992. He was born in 1906. He's been dead for a while. He's been dead for a while. He was born in 1906. So the RAS has decided, they decided that they were going to stop people from using his name. You can go ahead and use a telescope. You can go ahead and use the thing named after him. You just can't call it that. That'll show them. Good God, yo. Help me. Somebody help me. You know, we hear a lot of from the left, the number of unarmed black men that have been murdered by the police. Now, not that there haven't been incidents that are terrible that need to be investigated. Not that every police officer out there is an angel, because I don't believe that. I just don't. I think if you are if you study human beings at all. Now, I'm not, you don't have to do scholarly research, but if you look at human beings, you study them, you pay attention to human beings, you can't think that everybody who chooses any given profession is perfect. We have had, there are stories about dentists. A dentist, who's more harmless than your local dentist, giving women a little extra gas so they can feel them up during their dentist appointment. What? Dude's a dentist. They're a much more nerdy profession than deciding to go into medicine and go into dentistry. Yeah, here's a little more gas. Let me put my hand down your shirt, right? So if that's going on, teachers, what's more nerdy than being a teacher? And if you're going into that profession, you must really care. You must be really compassionate about children. Except the teachers that sleep with their kids, the teachers who rape their children, who rape the children they're in charge of. Because that's what it is. Because if you have adults having sex with minors, it's rape. Men do it, women do it. They rape the children. So what makes anybody think that a police officer, simply because they're a police officer, is a perfect human being that would never do anything outside the law? What makes you think that? However, enough is enough. That's the message from the Fraternal Order of Police as of 2022 comes to a close as one of the most dangerous years for law enforcement officers across the country, due to a beyond acceptable increase in the number of officers shot or killed in the line of duty. The reality, the Fraternal Order of Police explains in a new report, is a stain on our society. Through midnight on December 19th, the FOP reports that 323 officers were shot in the line of duty in 2022, a 7% increase over the same period of time in 2020, and a 13% increase than 2019. Tragically, one of the officers shot on duty since the beginning of the year, 60 were killed. Of the ones that were shot, 60. That stat is 28% higher than the same year-to-date period in 2020. They also report that 87 premeditated ambush-style attacks on law enforcement officers, in which 124 officers were shot, and 31 of them were killed. Broken out at the state level, Texas and Arizona saw the most officers shot in the line of duty, with 21, 7 and 21 respectively. Georgia saw 18 shot on the job. 16 officers were shot in Kentucky, and California saw 15 shot on the job. The FOP's full report on 2022, with additional state data released on Wednesday, will be available soon. The past year has been one of the most dangerous years for law enforcement in recent history due to the increase of violence directed towards law enforcement officers, as well as a nationwide crime crisis, which has seen criminals emboldened by failed policies of pandering prosecutors and cynical politicians. The FOP National President Patrick Yoes says this: frankly, it's unlike anything I've seen in my 36 years of law enforcement. Many will often look at this data and you just see numbers. Yoes continues of the 2020-22 report. That is not far behind last year's data, which showed more officers were shot in the line of duty than any other year since they started tracking that back in 2015. Now, we must remember that this is what Yoes says, that they represent heroes, fathers, mothers, sons, daughters. Yoes says of ambushed officers shot or killed. These are human beings. I have to personally wonder how much of the increase in violent crime is not just due to, and because it is, to policies like no bail policies, where people commit crimes. People commit crimes and they are arrested, charged with a crime, and then are back out in the street because they don't have to post bail. No bails, no cash bails. They basically get a court date and then they're back on the street literally in minutes. How much does that embolden somebody to say F the police? How much? A lot. A lot. Folks, at the end of 2022, what I want us to do is start thinking about what kind of people we want to be. Not what you want to do, not what you want to get, not the job you want to get, not the lifestyle you want to lead. What kind of person do you want to be? So, if I may, 2022 was tough for me and my family personally. We lost some really good people. We lost some really good people in our lives. My brother-in-law, my friend Dewan, my friend Eddie, Gene, someone I work with, known for years. And yeah, it's tough. And at all of these gatherings, the funerals and the like, people always talk about what kind of person they were. Because that's how we remember people. We don't remember people by the car they drove. We don't remember people by the kind of, the nice house they lived in. We remember people by who they were, what kind of person they were. How do you want to be remembered? We're all, like old people said, we're all heading that way. There's no escaping it. How do you want to be remembered? This is what we get to decide. And it's one of the few things that we do get to decide. How will we be remembered? How will you be remembered? How will people look when that day comes? What will they think about when they think about you? This is our opportunity as we move into 2023. That's what we need to focus on. It is my belief that if we focus on that, other things around us will fall into place. I believe that. We've got a few more morning reports to do for 2022. Let's see, we're going to do some. Let's see, today is Wednesday, right? Yeah, today, Thursday, and Friday, and that will be the end of the morning reports for 2022. Um, I just thank everybody who watched, who listened, and until tomorrow, until we see you again, go out there and learn something, love somebody, and for goodness sakes, y'all take care of yourself. We'll see you when we see you. Bye bye now.